Alright, councillors and staff, welcome to Corporate Service Committee meeting with Upper Hunter Shire on the 17th of April 2026. I call this meeting open at 9 a.m. and I'll begin with apologies and an application for leave by absence by Councillor Fraser. Do I have a mover? Move Councillor Shield. Seconded Councillor Collison. All those in favour? Carried. And we'll move forward to disclosures of interest, if we've got any.
None have been received yet.
None to be received. Any public participation? Now that Rag's gone, I've got nobody in the audience.
There's no public participation registered for today, Mr. Chair.
But anyway, if you want to encourage Steve along, he might make a place there. But yeah, if we can move forward into the business items, Mr. Phelps, if you could lead us through the quarterly financial summary and investment report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome all. We start on page 3, right down the bottom there with the summary in regards to the March ended period. So we have a positive variance to budget of 138,000 compared to a positive variance of 172 in February. Obviously, with each month, there's a lot of ups and downs within the service areas within council. So we'll just go through the main variations that are sitting there for the month ended March 26 up to the year-to-date month ended March 26. In the operating revenue, we're up by about $3.6 million. The main contributors behind that, we have people and culture with about $80,000 in front in regards to the increase in the trainee and subsidies areas there. We have gone through and done that review now in regards to the reallocation, and we'll bring that into account in the April report. Government Place revenue still higher by 93,000, even though the number of residents has declined down to only a few now come the end of March. So as we move into the transition period, come the 30th of April, so we are in front of budget of revenue at this point in time. Early learning and family daycare is up quite substantially, up 276,000. It's maintained strong utilisations coming through from population coming into the facility. However, we also received the retention payments for the childcare workers, which are just on forwarded to the employees. So you'll see a big jump also in the actual cost of salaries coming through in the operating expenses. Youth services is lower by 35,000. Reduction mainly due to a repayment of 37,000 of unspent EIPP, which is the early intervention prevention payment for the youth from the 24-25 year. So we had to repay that back. We've finalised that program come the 30th of September. They've changed into a new program through the Department of Communities and Justice. So we'll see how that pans out during the course of the next financial year. Camping and caravanning, it's up by about $50,000. Again, strong utilisation of the caravan park in Merriwell has increased our revenue streams there.
Just on that, Mr. Phelps, has that been, now we've got Depop coming up and the budgets for next financial year, this has been sort of earmarked as a little opportunity for that caravan park with all the developments going over there with the Central Western Res and the like. We're obviously getting a lot more throughput. Is there internal discussions about any improvements or any chance to take some extra revenue from that facility over there?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have looked at refurbishing some cabins that are actually over there at this point in time and utilising those coming through. So the actual expansion of the footprint, though, we haven't looked in regards to that at this point in time. The real estate revenue is higher by about 150,000. We've maintained strong commercial rent coming through, which has been quite pleasing, with a number of new rentals coming on board. Sale yards revenue is one that has really jumped up, given that we've had very, very good cattle throughput numbers at this point in time. Whether those will come off over the course of the next 6 months with destocking, it may possibly at the moment due to the dry weather. We'll wait and see that happen.
Just through you, Mr Chair, comments, I certainly agree with you there. The numbers will definitely come off, have done all my life if it ever rains again. But I think it's great we've got that building up there. Yes, we still owe money, but with 1,000 export and more heavy cattle, hardly any of those cattle are coming through that sale yard's lane, like when they used to, out in the open on concrete. The buyers are even saying, thank heavens we've got a undercover, soft floor, because cattle are worth a fortune, especially export cattle, but very, very few lame like they used to be. So we've just got to work through this, and it's going to be a great asset when we tick that loan off.
Thank you. Moving into our revenue from waste facilities, it's up by about 334,000. So we've had still a little bit higher access charges, which has been pleasing coming through. So we'll bring that into account into next year's budget, obviously. But the landfill collection revenue has also been up, so that's been good in regards to council's revenue streams. General purpose revenue has been higher by about 170,000, so there's been an increase in the annual rating yields just through splits of properties and so forth. Expected to come down slightly due to the pensioner concessions, which we'll bring into account, but we've had also higher returns on our investments, which has been pleasing. Moving into the public cemeteries, it's up by 70,000 and it's continued to move along. So we've just had strong activity in the purchase of some site plots and interment fees. Town planning, slower by about 61,000. This is one that's gone backwards a little bit. Mainly due to timing predominantly. We've got VPAs that are being invoiced at this point in time to the end of March, so that will bring back into line with the budget. White Park revenue was lower by 58,000. We have seen some improvement over the last couple of months in the actual revenue streams down at White Park, and we can continue to have a good book of events coming through for the course of the next part of the calendar year. So we'll be reviewing the camping revenue. That's one area where we will be reviewing, just to make sure that what we're getting from our agency booking is coming back to our coffers as well. So we're just going through that reconciliation process at this point in time. Aerodrome revenue is actually higher by $70,000. We've had really, really good revenue streams over the course of the last 2 months for the billing cycle in January as well as February, which has really propped up the actual revenue streams in the aerodrome. Regional roads is higher by 200,000. Pretty well, we've brought into account roads to recovery funding for Main Road 358. While we had the contractors on tap out there for the rectification works of Main Road 358, we utilised them so that we didn't have to demob them, so that we can actually do a bit of heavy patching. So we went ahead and done a bit of heavy patching off the actual rectification area. Local roads revenue was higher by another 170,000. The contributions for maintenance grading for Wallar Road, over the last 3 months, we've had 2 maintenance grades of Wallar Road after we've done the reconstruction work over there for Lightsource BP. So we've obtained contributions from them for that maintenance grade, which has been pleasing. The big one that's really jumped up is the water revenue. Obviously, there's been a bit of chatter around the use of water coming through. So we've had higher than expected consumption coming through for the first 3 quarters. So it's been up significantly by $1 million.
Yeah, and just on that, so this quarter, or the last billing quarter, residents get 100 kilolitres at the low rate, and then the high rate kicks in after then. Into this billing period, for residents, it'll be 75 before you kick into the higher rate.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. The other item that has brought up that revenue stream as well has been development income. So over the course of the last probably 7 months, we've had really good development income coming through for water and sewer, and that's the reason why sewer is predominantly up as well. It's up by about 400,000, of which about probably over half of that is in development contributions coming through, which is quite pleasing.
How much is that attributable to the large development on Gundy Road, and have we seen that within the systems yet, or is that to come? Is that to come once the blocks start being?
Through you, Mr. Chair, probably have to take that on notice, but I don't believe that we have actually seen that development income coming through as yet. I think they're just going through the process of doing their initial stages of earthworks up there. So, but I'll take that on notice and come back to the committee. Moving into our non-operating revenue and expenditure, here we're behind by about $230,000. Internal fleet hire is dropped back down again by nearly $250,000, just with lower utilisation. We're continuing to review that. The availability of operators has really stymied us doing a lot of our internal grading work, especially. So we've had to rely on contractors for that part of the actual earthworks and maintenance regimes. So we'll be looking at trying to engage more operators onto those machines to build up within internally.
How many contracted operators do we currently have?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have a multitude of them. We predominantly have, I would say, about probably 5 regulars that we do engage on around the area, being Merriwa and Scone, probably 5 to 6 normally. Moving into our operating revenue, here we're a little bit overspent at the moment by about $1.1 million. Again, there's ups and downs within the actual different service areas. Just going through the high-level items. So overall in our corporate area, we're in front of budget at the moment by about $690,000, which is about 330 of it in fleet management. So obviously with the utilisation lower, the servicing requirements and the repair work has reduced. And our information technology also about a couple of $100,000, which effectively is a lot of timing of licensing coming through. But overall, across most of the corporate areas, they are underspent at the moment, which is quite pleasing. Community services, admin costs, again, that's lower by about $120,000. We've had lower costs of wages due to staff vacancies. And it was mainly looking at the service area there and the funding stream. So, as I mentioned earlier with the EIPP, also the community services funding regime from Department of Community and Justice changed. So now they've got a new funding stream that has come through, and we've only gone through and just recruited for that funding stream in the last month. So they'll come on board in the next week or so. So that cost of labour will increase from there on. Government Place, as mentioned previously, it's high by just under $400,000. Even though our residents have declined over the last 6 months, we've had to maintain our staffing levels there through agency skilled staff, so through registered nurses and the like. So come the end of April, that won't be a requirement, so that should alleviate the overspends. Early Learning Centre, as mentioned, our income's up significantly, also our costs are up as well. The income is higher than what the costs are though, which is quite pleasing, the variations. So we've more or less gone through and started payment of those retention payments to all our staff once we received it from the government. Youth services costs are lower by 41,000. Obviously, they're lower based on the fact that the EIPP now has been removed from that area. Camping and caravan costs are up by about $35,000. We just had a little bit higher in costs in tree maintenance. We had to lop a few trees, unfortunately, in the camping ground areas. And also just to maintain the caravan park over in Merriwall. Economic promotion is high by 52,000. We've moved the admin costs now out of for the business services administration into the different areas in the April period for sale yards, White Park and real estate, so that they'll come into where that person is actually been identified in. Private works costs are higher by about $30,000. We're going through the motions at the moment of actually doing our invoicing for a lot of our private works. So our revenue girls are looking at the different jobs that are outstanding and running it through with the boys on the outdoor staff to actually make sure that we capture those.
Could you get them to contact me? They're about 12 months overdue.
Not a problem. So we are actually going through and going through all the private works at this point in time to recover back the dollars.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just on the economic promotion, there was a move to put a sign on next to the bypass, and that was going through Transport for New South Wales. Has there been any progress on that?
Yeah, thanks, through you, Mr. Chair. There's a couple of opportunities we've had to look at signage, predominantly to promote White Park, but it could be used for other purposes as well. It'll be probably located between White Park and in the bypass road reserve. The most recent offer we've had is one where it'll probably be a nil cost to council, and it will allow council to have a portion of the advertising time, and the balance will be paid for by external advertisers. So we're exploring that, and that'll probably go back to the White Park Committee first for their concurrence. Just getting locations through Transport for New South Wales, and also ensuring that it's not going to be obstructed by trees in the near future, because there is quite a bit of tree growth along that bypass, is probably the biggest trick that we're just trying to resolve at the moment.
Just moving into our sale yards costs, so it's higher by about $50,000, which the costs haven't increased substantially, even though our revenue has. So that's been quite pleasing. That's more or less just the offsetting cost. The tourism promotion's higher by $87,000. We're allocating some funds from our savings within the Enviro and customer service area to cover off that $87,000, which was for the a tourism coordinator within the budget. Moving into stormwater maintenance is lower by about $73,000. We've just had lower than expected initial maintenance activities undertaken to date. We've actually looked at that area, and we're trying to push to get a lot more activity in that area to spend the funds before the end of the financial year and open up a few of the blocked stormwater drainage. Waste management costs are actually lower, not higher. Are actually lower than, not higher than budget. So we've had lower than expected curbside waste collection costs, which is primarily due to our timing of actually receiving the invoices from J.R. Richards. So that it should come back into alignment. Governance costs are lower by $98,000. Just general maintenance management costs coming through has been lower than expected, with some extended leave taken by some of the support staff.
Just on the waste management and J.R. Richards, there's been a little bit around about the fuel issues within that company. Are they discussing with us fuel levies, and where are we up to there?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, there's been a lot of contractors that have been discussing fuel levies coming through, obviously. J.R. Richards is one of those companies that we're looking at, and they've come to us with a proposal, so we're looking at that at this point in time and seeing whether or not we can help them along. Obviously, it's a tough gig for anybody that has heavy vehicles on the ground, and driving around at the moment with diesel costs coming through.
Yeah, so at the moment, our waste operation is pretty safe, and we're working through that. Yeah, that's good.
Yes, no. So we continue to look at helping out our contractors as well. So obviously we'll help them; they'll help us down the track, hopefully. So that'll just try and keep that good relationship going. Moving into health costs, service costs they're lower by 35,000, just with staff vacancies within that service area. Public convenience costs are higher by the 46, so that was just mainly the servicing costs of our amenities across the Shire. We've increased our budget coming through for the 26-27 year to cover off those the cost of that servicing costs. Street lighting costs are lower by 53,000, so that's been quite pleasing. We have all our street lighting on a LED factor now, so it's saving costs in regards to our electricity bill, so that's been quite pleasing. Town planning costs are lower by 87,000, again lower than expected costs in our staffing due to vacancies and associated costs attached to a program that we've got for accelerated DA program. So we're looking at that at this point in time and putting a few more resources into that area. Building service costs are also lower by 71,000, so there seems to be a bit of a trend. A lot of staff vacancies in there as well. We have a vacancy at the moment in the building certifier and surveying roles within the building services area. Animal costs are lower by 76,000. We have one staff member that's now come on board since January. However, we had that period coming up to the January period where we didn't have any compliance officers on tap other than contractors. So we're still looking at recruiting for one other compliance officer. So we'll be looking at that over the course of the next few months. Local government regulation and enforcement costs are higher by 36,000. Included in here is a contracted compliance officer that we had to put on to cover off those vacancies within animal control and compliance areas. We're looking at moving some of the costs from that contractor's costs up into the animal control cost area because they were looking after a bit of the animal control. Parks and gardens costs are higher by 67,000. So we've just had higher than expected admin staff training and tree management mainly. So it's a little bit higher than we anticipated. Library costs are up by about $60,000, just with the change after the retirement of the long-serving coordinator over there. So the team over there has come up with some great ideas and innovations, so that'll continue to push forward. It's come at a little bit of a cost, but obviously it'll be good for the community coming through. So we're looking at, we've forward purchased on some of our catalogues, which has been pleasing. So we've got those in vogue, but we'll continue to monitor that to the end of the year, mindful of trying to bring it back within budget. Sporting grounds is higher by about 62,000. Again, servicing of the grounds, again, we've taken into account that into the 26-27 year to make sure that we have enough costs in there next year to continue that servicing regime.
Just on the sporting grounds, that cost item for us is only visible via one line item. Is there any chance sort of we can potentially get offline a breakdown of that into where those costs are blowing out there? It's a big number that we just don't have any.
Across the board, but we could probably do it.
Yeah. We can have a look at by sports ground and see where the actual physical costs
Yeah,
are
just-
per sports ground and what the activities per those sports ground were too, if you like. That's fine.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Thank you.
No, that's fine. Swimming pool maintenance costs and utility costs are higher by 62,000. Unfortunately, a lot of our pools are leaking at this point in time or dribbling out water. So we've had continual costs of water usage as well as electricity for the pumps to keep pumping away.
So through you, Mr Chair, I can certainly, yes, they are badly in need of some big money. Where are we heading into the future? I mean, I can't see any government giving us money to put new pools in, but Scone is losing a massive amount of water. So the future, where are we?
Through you, Mr Chair, the engineers or the guys in the infrastructure area have started looking at that and seeing whether or not there is any crack sealing that can be done. As soon as we identify where that leak is coming from, but with a lot of those pools, they're joined and they've got joins all the way through the pool coming into the mix. So it's one of those ones where we just have to sit down and assess and see what we can do to try and limit the leakage from those pools.
Through you, Mr Chair, do we empty pools in the off-season? Do they all get emptied or did we just leave water in there? I don't know.
Through you, Mr Chair, I believe that we do leave water in there, but we do bring them down to paint them. So last year we did paint part of the Scone pool and the Marundi pool. We're doing the Merriwar pool this next financial year, so we'll be painting that in the off season coming through, and we'll be painting the second half of the Scone pool as well. So in that process, those leaks will be reviewed to see whether or not we can do anything.
Just on prospective political funding, they're all Olympic. They are, as you said, Mr Mayor, we do have a problem going forward with the maintenance of these large items. They are all Olympic swimming pools, and we do have a home Olympics in, might have to help me out, 2032 I think it is, 2032. I wonder if it's worth us just putting feelers out there with sports ministers and the like, saying that there'll be strawberries growing in our Olympic pools by the time these next Olympics come about if we don't get some reasonable funding. So I wonder if it's worth us getting on to that and just knocking on the doors of a few ministers regarding our sporting prospects in the near future.
Yes, Mr Chair, they're probably worthwhile coming through. So we have the two Olympic, and I think Marundi though is only 25 metres, so it's a little.
Don't bring Marundi down. It's halfway there.
It is halfway there. So it's a possibility that you might be able to get that, given that I think Merriwar's pool was put in when the Olympics were at Melbourne. So I think that was part of the regime around the Melbourne.
Yeah, I think 1952 was a big year for much of regional Australia.
Yes,
on the swimming front.
yes. Okay, so moving down into our aerodromes area, our costs there are lower by 77,000. So we've had higher revenue, plus also then lower costs of actually delivering that revenue. So that's been quite pleasing coming through. Bridge maintenance costs are higher by 36,000. Pretty well more timing issue than anything else. We've increased our maintenance activities when we engaged a contractor to actually go through and undertake the biannual review of the bridges and also then do maintenance on them as and when they came through. Footpath maintenance costs are lower by about 43,000. There's been limited maintenance activities undertaken to date. I know the guys are going around at the moment and reviewing those footpaths and seeing whether there's any trip hazards and going through the process of actually rectifying any of those trip hazards with a bit of grinding and so forth. So bringing those, that maintenance hopefully should be spent coming through. RMS state roads costs are lower by about 292,000. So we've had lower than expected routine maintenance coming in. However, over the course of the next probably 2 months, 3 months, we may see those costs jump up again a little bit, especially with coming to the end of the financial year and Transport for New South Wales asking for us to do work out of the blue. So we'll be looking at that and seeing where it falls over the course of the next month and a half. Local roads and admin costs are higher by 238,000, higher than expected salaries, and we continue to review those costs and reallocate where we can. Local roads and regional roads maintenance It's a big number that's come through, so it's running pretty hot at the moment, and we've pretty well spent our allocation for the year. So we've got $1.2 million overspent at this point in time. We're looking at ways to utilise our crews and reallocating them to flood work and capital works over the course of the next 2 to 3 months. So if you get any complaints from the community, we need to probably hear that so that we can actually undertake any emergency maintenance works as and when required. But we're trying to reduce our costs in regards to that maintenance regimes at the moment. We did go pretty hard in the beginning part of the year. We haven't got our flood damage approvals as yet for the last 2 events that did come through. However, we're waiting on that and possibly moving the guys into that flood restoration works when it does happen.
Through you, Mr Chair, given the amount of time between those flood events last year and now, are we confident we're going to get that flood, what's it called, flood restoration grant coming through? Are we sure?
Yeah, through you, Mr Chair. The actual applications, we have to apply for it, and then we've got a 2-year frame to get the works done. So effectively, we've applied for $10 million worth of works through the two events, through restoration, and we're confident that those will come back. At least something of that $10 million should be approved by Reconstruction Australia, and then we'll have a 2-year frame to actually undertake those works and finalise it. Moving into our flood restoration works there, it's lower by about 520 at the moment. Obviously waiting on those approvals to come through, so we haven't undertaken any works there. Transport auxiliary costs are lower by 37,000. We're just going through doing our line marking at this point in time after the reseals are now complete. So we'll do our line marking and putting a few signs out, so that should bring that back into alignment. The last item on here is our water costs. The water costs are higher by about 400,000. Obviously with the additional use of water coming through, a lot of our electricity costs have gone up, and the operational cost to deliver that has gone up. So it's gone up within our operational area. However, we're looking at a couple of our items within our operational area that can be capitalised. So we're actually bringing those out in the April month. So that should bring that back down to a reasonable level.
It's probably a bit of a broad question, but across our network, at our electricity tariffs on our pumping stations, how do they sort of sit? What different tariffs are we looking at there?
For our electricity for our large sites, it's underneath a contract. So we're pretty well caught within that contract, and they're quite reasonable. It's the best result we could get at that point in time. So it's quite good. We are looking at ways to try and reduce that through possibility of going and doing some solar farm investment, but General Manager might have some other words for that.
Yeah, through you, Mr Chair, just as Mr Phelps said, we've got 2 contracts, so there's the large sites and the smaller sites, but the large sites predominantly water and sewage facilities, which are very heavy users. What we do have though is a lot of smart electronics behind the scene that ensures that pumping and all those sort of things that can be done in off-peak times is done in off-peak times. So even though the tariffs are fixed, we can control when we pump in a lot of instances and do so to ensure that we get the optimum pumping during the best tariff times. Doesn't always work for sewage, but it does work for water in a lot of instances.
I presume you have, just talking, I mean, a lot of people talk about generation, just put a solar up, but for pumping operations, they're often not conducive to ROIs with solar, and especially large contracted sites, because a large amount of that contracted price is a set price and the usage is minimal, so you can impact that. Have we got scope And do you have a plan of where the best ROIs are on our pumping stations and the like with solar and or other generation?
Yeah, through you, it's a conversation I've been having with the Director, Environmental and Community Services only in the last couple of weeks. You may recall the sustainability document that we produced a couple of years ago. We identified as part of that sustainability work more focused predominantly on large buildings such as White Park, sale yards, even our depot facility as being solar generators, more so than facilities such as pump stations. Whilst we could potentially use solar for some of those, the energy demands and the actual opportunity for collecting solar at the pump stations is tricky, just the physical layout of the facilities. But we do have quite large surface areas at those other large roofed areas, such as White Park and the sale yard. So they're our first focus. Certainly we can look at pump stations and the like down the track.
No, it's good to hear. It is rather complex because you often get this conversation, oh, why don't you just stick solar on it? Well, that form of generation is not really compatible with a lot of our high energy users, and so it's just nice to hear that we've got that sustainability plan in, and for people in the community, we know that we're looking at these things and we're looking to minimise costs and execute the best ROIs that we can in that space.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So moving into our capital expenditure, which is the other portion of the overspend at this point in time, it's by about $2.1 million. The main items contained within that, Campbell's Corner development's higher by about $528,000, so up by about $500,000. Within budget allocations though, so we've gone ahead and done a lot of our compliance work there. We've still got a little bit to go just to make it compliant within the facility. All the actual facade work has pretty well been completed now, so that's coming to an end. So that's the funding allocation will come against that 520. Christmas lights obviously is lower by the 25,000, so we'll probably isolate that for next year and have that set aside.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did notice you have spent $1 according to our line items further on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes,
So thank you.
through Mr. Chair, yes.
I'm glad to see
we had to
that's
change one of the
underway.
bulbs, yeah.
$1 at a time.
Yeah,
Only
that bulb put
$24,999
out all the lights.
down. Thank you all.
Moving into landfill compliance area, it's a little bit higher by 32,000. We're actually investigating the groundwater, doing boreholes for groundwater monitoring as required by the EPA. There will be some additional costs by putting a regime in place for that groundwater monitoring coming through as required by EPA. So that'll happen over the course of the next 15 months. Scone Park upgrade, completely finished now. The funding's been allocated in the proposed votes for this month. White Park development is higher by about 143,000. All the power sites are complete down there now. The extension to the storage compound is nearing completion, and all the works on the roof and so forth are being finalised. So we're just going through doing some proposed votes in regards to the final costs of that when they do arrive. It's only just been finished off in the last month, so we're waiting on a couple more costs to come in to finish it. The Cassilis decommissioning of the fuel tank on the footpath there, we've pretty well put a vote in there for that, and pretty well put the other side of that against the resident who will actually be funding that process.
Is that included the awning there that we
That's
discussed?
correct.
So
Yes,
that's the awning and the decommissioned fuel tank and the
Correct.
pavement.
Yep.
It's all been rectified. And
Been all rectified, and
good.
we've applied that vote for this month. Local roads and
Through you, Mr. Chair, was that an old service station, was it?
Yep. It was garage.
Yeah, an old garage, yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
I think we'll just keep trucking along. I can recap at the end if you like, Rob. All right, that's all right. We'll.
Are
if
we
you
still
could-
recording though, Robin?
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Rob. I will.
Yep, so looking at local and regional roads reseal program, lower by 316,000 at this point in time. The reseal costs are, that we've got the final bill come in for those, which is effectively around that $300,000 mark, so it'll pretty well be within budget, come through into April. Rural roads resheeting is up by about 86,000. We're exceeded our budget so far coming through, so there's limited resheeting to be completed as per the schedule for the rest of the financial year. Idaville Road rehabilitation costs are higher by 70,000. Our initial budget was reduced down by 160,000, thinking that the work was finalised. However, we've had some late costs and some rectification works required for that road. So the additional costs that will be funded by the R2R program, where it was initially going to be funded out of anyway. Barrington Forest costs for stage 1, just with it, finalisation of the guardrail costs and everything coming through, those costs have been taken up in a proposed vote this month with grant funding applied against it through the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program. Scone CBD's works were higher by 173,000. The required works by the heavy pedestrian compliance, so we've had to undertake that work. Scone Reservoir cost for $64,000. Future works have been identified for the reservoir coming down to Barton Street, just to make that more user-friendly and also help with the pressure from the reservoirs. The future works design is being done at this point in time. However, the works will be completed over the course of the next couple of years.
Just a double bunger question there, Mr. Phelps, on the CBD project. What compliance work have we done there? We get discussions about those pedestrian crossings and what's brought them into compliance, and what have we spent that 173,000 on?
Through you, Mr. Chair, a lot of it was around the traffic calming coming into the 40-kilometre area. So we had a lot of line marking. The pedestrian crossings were brought into play. We actually had to, we initially didn't have pedestrian crossings
So that's
there.
the actual change to the
Correct.
scope, and when we went from those
Correct.
refuges to
crossings and so
right,
forth.
So that's involved in
Yep.
in that. That just looks a very high number for what
Yeah.
we've seen down there of recent times.
Yeah. So a lot of the line marking coming into town right at the beginning of the financial year that was done.
Yep.
All that is included in that 174,000 as well. Also our roundabout paintings and so forth have been in there as well.
And just on Barton Street,
Mm-hmm.
did you follow up on our discussions earlier about some of the work that had been done prior from Russell?
Through you, Mr. Chair, not as yet. So we will undertake that coming through over the course of the next
Led to
month.
understand there's quite a body of work there.
Yeah. So we'll undertake that work as well. That is mainly in regards to design work that Russell has undertaken, just to make sure the water and sewer guys have reviewed that design work coming in.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Just on that HPPA overspend, does that, because I asked the question, I don't know if it was last time or before, as to why they put I don't know what you call it, a curb at the Woolies entrance up the northern end of Kelly Street. So when it was first built, you could drive north along Kelly Street going towards Murrurundi and make a right-hand turn into the Woolies car park. And then all of a sudden someone stuck a barrier there. I don't know what you call that. Is that part of that?
Yeah. So that was part of the traffic calming requirements coming into the 40-kilometre zone.
Right, so it's traffic calming, is it?
Yep. So we had to undertake that works to make it slow people down coming off the the roadwork from 60 down, or 50 down to 40. So it's part of Transport for New South Wales requirements. So overall, we have a total variance of a positive 138 by the end of the March period. Moving into our budget position hasn't changed at this date. Our votes are pretty well offsetting each other, and we have a schedule of a number of votes that have occurred in the current month to bring some of those budget overruns and shortfalls into play. Bank funds and investment report at the end of March, we've got $14.2 million. 13.8 of that is included in our investments, of which an investment schedule has been included in the report. External loans are 25.9, so they continue to come down by the $2 million a year. Internal loans, we've made another instalment coming through, so it's down to $3.75 million to the end of March, and that will reduce to $3 million by the end of June. Restricted assets, I've got the schedule in here to for our forecast out to the end of June, and a couple of votes that have gone in against that coming through. Grant funding outstanding has increased with the finalisation of Main Road 358. That grant funding is now outstanding, so we'll be obtaining that from the government over the course of the next month and a half, with the finalisation reports going through for that. So we are starting to see a little bit of traction in regards to the funds that are outstanding. Obviously, there's significant money outstanding that we're waiting on government to provide, and we're continuing to chase them up and get that on into our coffers.
Through you, Mr. Chair, have we had any correspondence back from the OLG in regards to chasing up those outstanding funds?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no correspondence back in regards to that. However, we continue to let them know that that's the case, and we continue to raise it with the funding bodies as well. Reconciliation Australia is one that we will continue to rattle their cage. Obviously, they are a little bit slow in regards to releasing funds, so we're continuing to get on the front foot with them and saying, hey, we need those funds now.
But are these all funds that we've spent?
Through you, Mr. Chair, correct. So all those funds there are monies that we've outlaid,
and this is
awaiting
for those,
return.
And for the one person that was playing at home, which is probably not watching right now, but might review it. So we have $9 million owing to us from mainly the state government and one little federal government there, but we're now $9 million out of pocket, and we have a rate base of what, 13 million.
Correct.
So yeah, making life a little bit difficult, and I'm fully supportive. We've gone over budget on regional roads and the like, and we've kept our roads up to scratch. We're doing our part, but this is where we're running into trouble here financially, is a cash flow drama, and when you're owed $9 million, it's very difficult. But anyway, we'll keep banging the drum, and hopefully you'll get some checks in the mail. You've got the right address down on those, don't you? Just in case.
Through you, Mr.
I've got
Chair.
a muscle book or something.
Just to give you a quick update, to confirm that we do have the right address. Mr. Chair, I did put a call into Office of Local Government yesterday just to do a follow-up to see if they were responding to our correspondence, predominantly the emails and letters that we sent to them earlier this year and late last year in regard to the Minister's approval to spend these funds. I got a call back only 10 minutes before coming into this meeting from the Office of Local Government saying, yes, they are still working on a response. Couldn't give me an actual deadline or a time frame, but they are considering our requests.
Through you, Mr. Chair, might help if the Albanese government and the Minns government paid their bills rather than spending $20 million on ads telling us to take our roof racks off and pump our tyres up.
I should take that on as a comment, but I hope the council have embraced this, and I hope not to see too many roof racks out in the car park as we leave today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So obviously, as you can see, the cash flow is quite tight. The probability that we may have used restricted funds being the external, the milestone grant funding that we've received in advance, again in March, is quite a possibility. We're just going through doing the numbers at this point in time, but we're within pretty well not the funds that are legislative, other than the grants in advance. So they're the funds that we've actually utilised out of our coffers. Moving into our capital expenditure report to the end of March, so $35 million is our revised capital works program, which is up by about $500,000 from the $34 million that we had there before, probably up by about $1 million. Based on our year-to-date expenditure, we've spent $25 million so far to the end of March, which is about 72% of our budget. So we still have a little bit of funding to be spent before the end of the year. However, there may be some more deferrals coming up to the end of the year, which may bring that capital expenditure revised budget down slightly. Moving into the KPI area, we've had 8 out of 33 indicators that are currently off track, and another 2 that are being monitored at this point in time. So it pretty well means that about 10 KPIs at the moment, or 30%, is off track or being monitored. It's a little bit of a decline by just one measure, and the 27% that was reported in December. So we continue to review it. Obviously, a lot of it's a bit of a timing factor, and we're expecting that will improve over the course of the next quarter. Then just moving down into our schedules. So as you can see on pages 17 through to 20 there, we've got our fund and function summary with number of votes highlighted there coming through to our revised budget, all coming back to zero by the page 20 bottom line. Bank reconciliations, we've pretty well got a stagnant position at this point in time. Since around that January through to March period, it stayed about the same level, based on the fact that we're just waiting on those funds to come in from government grant funding, and then it should go up substantially. Our investment schedule coming through, we have about 5 investments that are on tap at the moment to the end of March, all getting reasonable interest rates. The last interest rate that we did get, though, was about 5.46, so it was quite pleasing. So the investment, obviously from loans perspective for the community, is not good, but from an investment perspective, we're starting to see a lot better returns coming through again.
And that, how do you deal with that investment yield? How does that get moved into the finances?
With the investment yield, it gets spread across each fund based on the level of the fund balances. So water and sewer do get part of that, as well as the general fund.
So reinvested into each of these facilities, or reinvested into the
businesses?
Into the businesses.
Yep.
Thank you.
We more or less retain our interest and then just reinvest our principal components. Moving into our loan area to the end of March, as you can see there, it continues to just come down over the course of the year. So we'll have a reduction each month coming through. Into our restricted assets area, here you'll see that we've done some votes in our revised forecast coming through, mainly in regards to our water and sewer fund, where we've received a lot of development contributions and recognise those in our votes that we have got, and also a few of our capital works for those funds being deferred until next financial year. So overall, the reserves have picked up to 670,000. Moving into our capital expenditure side of things, as you can see here, we've got up to that $25 million. It's a summary page there on page 30, and then it just breaks up into each service area, the projects that are actually being undertaken and where they're actually situated to budget. And by the time we get down the bottom, it's $2.13 million overspent at this point in time on page 38.
Just back in your restricted assets, there I've got a couple of things marked. How are we going to deal with that $4 million? $4 million of losses for Gummin Place there. Will they sit there on those books, or how do we redistribute them once we've changed the business model over there?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, it's something that we'll have to sit down and go through with council to say we'll have to reduce all our other reserves to counter for that overspend, similar to the sale yards area. So we can leave the sale yards there hoping that it makes funds coming through, because it's another one that's quite negative. So it's more or less, it's a case of council making a decision to redistribute that across all other.
Yeah, and I'm sure
reserves.
you'll run through as the impacts that's going to have on our financial balance and how that appears in our final annual statement and
Correct.
the like, and
Yep.
what that does to our ratios.
As seen in previous financial years, we've had limited reserves available to actually have internal reserves. The internal reserves that we have allocated, any excess dollars over the external reserves, has gone to employment entitlements. So being the more critical one to have as an internal management reserve.
And the flip side of this, I suppose, we're living in the wrong time, but I'm sure the Mayor will tell you how much money the sale yard made before this change was made, and these internal restrictions went down the tube somewhere else, I believe, would be the colloquial form of it. So now we're suffering from decisions made at the time to rectify a problem which is now our problem in a different form.
Correct.
Yeah. Sorry, thinking out loud.
So obviously, at the end of the financial year, we only have a certain amount of excess cash available over the external reserves. So at that point in time is the decision-making period of when we do actually allocate it in our financial statements. The internal reserves and the external reserves noted in the restricted assets gives you an indication of where those full reserves are across the board, some up, some taking out of a down, effectively being negative. So it's more or less a more transparent way to look at having those funds availability. Moving into our KPI area on page 39. Here we've just got the detailed version of the actual KPIs. So you can identify there what items are green and what items are struggling or behind at this point in time. There's a number in there that will struggle to meet the KPI by the end of the financial year. However, there's a number in there also that will improve and come into green by the end of the year.
All right, councillors, if we've gone through, I've got just a couple of questions here. Has anybody got questions on the KPIs? Or here, just on the, sorry, my KPI number 4 there, with a year-to-date of 815%. This affected by the Hunter Warbirds rent? Is that why we're out to Billio there?
No, not necessarily the rent. It's a combination, Mr. Chair, of a number of businesses. It includes childcare,
Yep.
the sale yards, Campbell's Corner rent, well, it's all the rentals, not just Campbell's Corner, but all the rentals. Just trying to think what else we've got. Oh, the airport as well. So all of those combined.
Okay.
And this is a movement year on year from the previous year's position. So it's just showing the incremental improvement. And even though it's showing an improvement, combined, those businesses are still potentially making losses, but they're not making as big a losses as they were the previous year or the year prior to that. So each year we're seeing an improvement. Obviously, sale yards will be one that actually won't be subsidised this year because we'll see an actual profit. As Mr Phelps pointed out, airport has got higher landings and lower costs this year, so it's travelling quite well. So those two major improvements are contributing a lot to that overall movement there in that KPI for number 4.
I think another point will be next year on using the same factor will be difficult to achieve because we get to a point where, especially with sale yards being such a buoyant year,
And external factors.
yeah, it'll have an issue
absolutely.
next year.
Yeah, and so we may look to review perhaps the way that we did. The other question I had was on number 8 there, just on the opposite page, 41. What qualifies as a community engagement? Because I said there's a target there of 900 community engagements per year. I'm just curious as to what a community engagement is.
I can get the full definition provided to you, but I understand it's every time they have a youth activity, that would be an engagement. It could be a community activity.
Yeah.
There was, and you may remember last year our target for this was only 100 and we exceeded the target significantly. So we've moved the target to 900 and we're still exceeding it, Mr Chair. So it is an area we are doing a lot of activity in that space,
Sure.
but I'll get a definition of what the staff use as an actual engagement.
Thank you. No, you're right.
Yep. So, the final report in the schedule there is effectively our votes. So, if you wanted to have a bit of a look at those votes there, make sure you're comfortable, and then we'll process those through the mix.
Councillors, we've got any questions on the variations? I do have one. I think I may have the answer, but I'll confirm it. But if we go later on in this discussion, later on in the meeting, there's White Park committee meeting, and it's been spoken of for a little bit of time that we're going to move some capital works, some S94 and some grants out of that operating loss into CapWorks. I'm not seeing, and it was directed that it would be in March. I'm not seeing it in the list here. Is that
Through you,
wrong?
Mr Chair, that's effectively an actual journal that gets done for the actual the grant funding as well as Section 94. So that will happen over the course of the next month. So you'll see something come through probably.
So that one, so there's 131,361, which changes profitability by quite a lot in that space.
Correct.
And so but that's not going to be visible through the variations here. That'll just appear on our radar next, theoretically.
Okay. Correct.
All right, thank you. Okay, councillors, if we've got any questions or comments regarding, and we're happy to vote on the whole 8, I presume, if anybody's happy with that. We've got a mover. Moved Councillor Stiles, seconded Councillor Shields. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, Mr Phelps. We'll move into the operational report. If you just want to, if you're happy, because we've had quite an extensive discussion about all of these, but this is the broken down version for councillors to go line item on all of the discussions. If you're happy just to see anything that's out of the ordinary, and if
Ask a question.
councillors want any
Through you, Mr Chair,
further questions.
it's got there in February that I was a apology. I think there should be a leave of absence. In February council meeting.
Yep.
Can I just have that,
I don't.
so it doesn't tarnish my record?
Roger. No, we'll have that noted. Thank you, staff.
I suppose through you, Mr Chair, the main items to highlight out of the bigger book of joy there is pretty well the main areas we are struggling at the moment from a financial point of view that's been offset by savings within other service areas is in our rec and culture area, which is pretty well our sporting grounds, swimming pools, White Park, and parks and facilities. So it's behind overall as a full conglomerate of about 800,000. It's overspent or outside of budget. And the other area is effectively the roads. So as I mentioned earlier with the roads, our maintenance has gone pretty hot for the year, and we're up by about overspent by about $1.4 million. Yep. So if you look at those, about $2.2 million in those two areas that's been offset by savings within the admin corporate area, in our environment area, and just general revenue streams coming through, and our water and sewer areas with underspends in capital expenditure. But they're the two main drags that have happened in regards to our operations for the current year.
Yep.
And obviously, new Director of Infrastructure on board now. He's definitely looking into those items and drilling down and seeing where we can save costs to the end of the financial year, and then also manage it going into the next financial year.
Yep. Very good. Any questions, councillors? I've just quickly got a couple. Just on page 60, just on the depots, building maintenance is about double.
Yes, through you, Mr Chair, we're going through and actually reviewing that. Yep. We identified some capital costs that have actually gone in there. We've done some works for the depot that we will capitalise and bring out.
They're pretty old and tired.
I know they're old.
They're very old and tired, so I'm sure one of the councillors will be overly concerned with you investing a bit into some of our facilities.
Yeah. Through you, Mr Chair, as you notice in the budget for next year, we did have a fair whack of money assigned to the depots,
yep.
Hopefully to upgrade their amenity facilities there.
Page 66, just on admin information services. Records management, down by a significant amount, under budget due to salary vacancies and record storage costs. Any risks by having this understaffed? It is a very digital world we live in. And
We've just advertised for another records officer, so we are trying to fill that vacancy at present.
Now, finally for me, I just want to point out, page 90, section 88, state government waste levy. We've paid the state government $593,000 so far this year on our recycling tax, which we get nothing back for. Now, is there anybody got any more questions or comments before I take this to a vote? All right, there not being any, can I have a mover for the operational report? Move Councillor Colson, second Councillor Stiles, all those in favour. Carried. And we'll shoot over to the contractor and expenses report.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Pretty well, I'll take it as read. We haven't entered into any other contracts that have been more than 50K. And then you've got your schedule of consultancy and legal costs. Pretty well the consultants' fees are keeping within budget. Legal costs have blown out significantly, mainly on property and lease-related matters. We've gone through and looked at a lot of our leasing and made sure we renew our leases with bodies, as well as we have a lot of property issues at the moment with regards to the compulsory acquisition of land for our water and sewer areas, as well as our Bow Street over in Merriwa. So there's been a number of legal costs that have come through, and also Government Place has had extra legal costs in regards to the transition to the boarding house model.
Busy time with
Busy
the
time,
lawyers.
yeah.
But I did see money in there for Bow Street. So
Correct.
does that mean that we now have that? Is that an official? Has that been no?
No, that's
Alright.
just our legal.
I was very optimistic, but it was a very small number, and I thought that sounds good. We've done out. We've
3
done well
years,
out
the
of that.
chair. That's the very initial stages of that, I believe. Yeah.
Well, there you go, Councillor Stiles. We're moving along, or we're starting. All right, speaking of moving along, have we got a mover for the contractors and expense report? Move Councillor Stiles, seconded Councillor Shields. All those in favour? Carried. Property update, Mr General Manager, if there's any changes?
Yeah, look, thank you, Mr Chair. As mentioned earlier, commercial properties are doing reasonably well at the moment, exceeding our budget expectations. I'm happy to take questions, but I think councillors are fairly familiar with this report now and understand where most of the focus from staff is on property development.
I just note the Hunter Warbirds facility, there's been a change in where that's reported, is that right? That's come across from tourism to real estate now, so that's a $56,000 change from tourism into real estate.
Yep.
Just so councillors are aware of that. All right, have we got a mover for a property update? Move Councillor Stiles, seconded Councillor Shields. All those in favour? Carried. Councillor Collison, what was your decision on there? Yeah, carried. Thank you, Robin. I have to count you as against if you don't vote. Oh dear. There's always a troublemaker in that seat. All right, moving forward. Grant report for Corporate Service Committee.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Chair. Again, I'll take it as read. You can see there's 2 successful grants in the March-April schedule on page 139. Probably just bring everyone's attention to page 141. Partway down there, there's a $500,000 grant for state libraries. Since the production of this report a week ago, or earlier this week, we've been notified that $500,000 was successful, so that's another,
excellent news.
another piece of good news. We will report that in the next month, but I just thought since it was timely,
That's
I'll
good.
let you know that one.
We might pass that forward to Councillor Clout, who's Minister for Libraries. So that's excellent news.
If there's any further questions, happy to take
Just a
them.
question through you, Mr Chair. Down Crown Reserve Improvement Fund, Moonam Flat Campground upgrade. Where is that the Belmar Hangar upgrade, or where is it? Not the
No,
Belmar Hangar.
that was the amenity block upgrade that we applied for. There's some other matter to be addressed prior to us doing the works.
Right, so that's on the council-owned campground, those
Correct.
amenities, because they're certainly in bad need of repair.
Yep.
Thank you.
We need to address a few other issues there before we come back to that one, Mr Mayor.
Yep.
Yep.
Alrighty, we've got a mover for the grants report. Move Councillor Stiles, seconded Councillor Collison. All those in favour? Carried. Now, the final report today is the White Park Management and Development Committee and adopting the minutes of this committee. Both myself and Mr Mayor there is on this committee, so that's
Through you, Mr Chair,
Yeah.
just a comment, I don't know whether councillors received an email during the week from Mrs Betts, I think, reusing that area we spoke about at White Park for parking. So I suppose that's something we'll carry over now back to the White Park Committee, will we?
Yeah, so first of all, through you, Mr Chair, I think that email only went to councillors that were on the committee because it only went to committee members, so maybe not all the councillors got it. But as you know, that was a point of discussion at the last meeting about parking. I've had a chat to Anna in particular about what we take back to the next White Park Committee meeting, and I think it's appropriate that we identify on that master plan that we've been working on two priority areas for parking. A first priority area, which would be a parking area that is pretty much agreed to by all users as the first point of allocation, and then possibly having a second priority parking area which may not be agreed to by all the users but is sort of, I guess, generally agreed to by the majority, that would be used if the weather conditions are right and if the priority area 1 is completely full, then it would be used. And I think that's the only way of addressing this. I don't think we can sterilise that land completely from parking, but that's just my opinion at the moment. We'll take that to the committee and get the committee to ratify that strategy.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to discuss, and one of the limitations we certainly have down there is land. Since the bypass has gone through, it's reduced any opportunity to develop further. As a previous user of that ground, that it is discussed, and they are valid discussions. The damage going forward, will we be looking at fee structures to rectify? I think just offhand, I think when I've had these discussions with those affected, the resolution that I've come to in my own head is there's inevitable damage to that place which will need extra money. Do we need to address our fees and charges around maybe, I like your idea of the staged parking, and if we have to use, say, stage 2 parking, then there'll be an extra fee on that.
Yeah, so the general discussion at the last committee, as I recall, was that there had to be some financial either contribution up front or penalty after the event if there was a damage. We suggested a bond type system where a user would pay some sort of bond, and if there was damage after a particular event that used that area for parking, we would utilise that bond fund for rectification works.
No, very good. Alrighty, if we've got a mover for the adoption of the minutes. Moved Councillor Colson, seconded Councillor Shields. All those in favour? The ayes have it. I think that is all we have for today. So I thank you, councillors, and thank you, staff, for your attendance, and call the meeting complete at 10:18. Thank you, Robert.